By the time Amanda was rushed back to the hospital, she could barely speak. Her body felt hot 1 minute and cold the next. Her breathing had become shallow, uneven, as if each breath required effort. She lay in the back seat of the car, her head resting weakly on her mother's lap, while Pastor John drove faster than he ever had in his life. "Stay with me, Amanda," her mother kept saying, stroking her hair with trembling hands. "We are almost there." Amanda's eyelids fluttered. "Mom." "Yes, baby, I'm here." "Pray." That single word broke something inside her mother, but she forced herself to remain steady. "I am praying. God is here. He's right here." In the driver's seat, John's knuckles were white against the steering wheel. "Lord, not like this," he whispered under his breath. "Please, not like this." At the hospital, nurses rushed her onto a stretcher and disappeared through swinging double doors, leaving her parents behind in a blur of antiseptic smell, bright light, and suffocating uncertainty. The waiting room felt unbearably cold. Time slowed into something thick and heavy. John sat forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly, whispering prayers non-stop. His wife paced back and forth, wiping tears with the edge of her scarf, unable to sit still. Every time a doctor walked past, their heads snapped up in hope, but none of them stopped. Minutes turned into an hour, then another. Finally, a young doctor approached them. His expression carefully neutral, the kind of expression that tries to hide bad news before it's spoken. "Mr. and Mrs. John?" They stood immediately. "Yes, how is she?" John asked. The doctor hesitated. "She is very critical." John's heart dropped into his stomach. What's wrong with her? What is causing this? "We are still running tests," the doctor said. "Her body is shutting down, but we don't yet understand why." Shutting down. The words echoed in John's mind like a sentence being pronounced. "Can we see her?" his wife asked desperately. The doctor nodded. Briefly. Amanda looked smaller in the hospital bed. Machines surrounded her, blinking, humming, measuring things her parents could not understand. Tubes ran into her arms. Oxygen prongs rested in her nose. Her skin looked pale, almost translucent under the harsh fluorescent lights. John walked slowly to the bedside, afraid of what he might see up close. Her eyes were half open. "Dad," his voice caught. "I'm here." She tried to smile, but it came out weak, barely there. He took her hand gently, shocked at how cold it felt despite the fever burning through her body. Her mother stood on the other side, quietly crying. Amanda turned her head slightly towards her. "Mom, don't cry." That only made her cry harder. "I'm not crying." She lied through tears. Amanda looked back at her father. "Dad, am I going to be okay?" The question pierced him like a blade. Every instinct screamed to tell the truth. That he didn't know. That he was terrified. That he felt completely powerless. But he swallowed it all. "Yes," he said firmly, though his voice trembled. "You'll be fine. God is with you." She held his gaze for a long moment, as if searching his eyes for certainty. Then she nodded weakly. "Okay." After they were asked to step outside, John remained standing near the door, unable to move far away. He pressed his forehead against the cool wall and began to pray in a low, intense whisper. "Father, this child has done no wrong. You gave her to us. You cannot take her like this." His wife sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Inside the room, alarms suddenly began to beep faster. Nurses rushed in. A doctor shouted instructions. John froze. The sound of urgency cut through the hallway like a knife. Then the door slammed shut. What followed felt like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. More staff arrived. Equipment was wheeled in. Voices rose and fell in tense bursts. John tried to push forward, but the nurse gently blocked him. "Sir, please." "That's my daughter." He stood there trembling, eyes fixed on the door, listening to sounds no parent should ever hear. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the beeping changed from rapid to irregular to a long, continuous tone. Silence followed, heavy, final, unmistakable. The door opened slowly. The doctor stepped out, removing his gloves, his face pale. John already knew. Still, he asked, "Doctor?" The man took a deep breath. "I am very sorry." 3 simple words that shattered an entire world. "We did everything we could." John stared at him blankly, as if the language had suddenly become unfamiliar. "No," he said quietly. "No, you didn't." "I am sorry." "My daughter cannot just die," John said, his voice rising. "She was fine weeks ago." The doctor's eyes softened with helpless sympathy. Her body simply stopped responding, as if she were a machine that had malfunctioned. Behind him, his wife let out a scream that echoed down the corridor. Raw, broken, animal-like. She collapsed to the floor, wailing uncontrollably, her hands hitting the thighs as if trying to wake herself from a nightmare. John didn't move, didn't cry, didn't shout. He just stood there, staring past the doctor into nothing. They allowed him to see her one last time. The machines had been disconnected. The room felt too quiet now. Amanda lay still on the bed, her eyes closed, her face peaceful in a way that felt deeply wrong. No rise and fall of her chest, no sign that life had ever been there. John walked to the bedside slowly, as if approaching something fragile that might break if he moved too fast. He touched her hand, cold. He flinched but did not pull away. "Amanda," he said softly. No response. He waited, as if expecting her to open her eyes and say she had been joking. Yet, nothing. He leaned closer, his voice breaking for the first time. "Amanda, Daddy's here." Still nothing. Something inside him cracked open. A deep guttural sound escaped his throat. Not quite a sob, not quite a cry, just pure pain forcing its way out. He lowered his forehead onto the bed beside her arm. "This is not how your story ends," he whispered hoarsely. When he finally lifted his head, his expression had changed. The grief was still there, overwhelming, crushing, but something else had taken root beneath it. Fury. Not wide, uncontrolled anger, focused, burning resolve. He turned towards the nurse standing quietly in the corner. "I'm taking her home." The nurse blinked in shock. "Sir, you can't." "I am her father." His voice was calm but immovable. "Please, prepare the necessary documents." Hospital staff warned him he was not thinking clearly, but nothing could move him. By evening, Amanda's body was brought home. Her mother collapsed beside the bed, crying until her voice grew hoarse. My child, my child." Friends tried to comfort her, but grief that deep has no language. John stood a few feet away, silent, watching, not crying, not speaking, just watching. Then suddenly, he stepped forward, lifted Amanda gently into his arms, as if she were merely asleep, and began walking towards his bedroom. "John, what are you doing?" his wife cried. He did not answer. He carried her inside, laid her carefully on the bed, then turned towards the door. "No one should disturb me." His wife stared at him in confusion and fear. "John?" He met her eyes. "I will not bury my daughter." Before anyone could respond, he stepped out, closed the door, and locked it from the inside. Inside the room, the air felt heavy, almost sacred. Amanda lay on the bed, still and silent. John stood beside her for a long moment, breathing slowly, gathering something deep within himself. Then he dropped to his knees. "Father." His voice was rough, exhausted, but steady. "You gave her to me." There was silence. You cannot take her like this. Hours passed. He did not move, did not eat, did not drink. Outside the door, worried voices came and went. Some pleaded, some argued, some prayed. His wife sobbed until she could barely stand. Inside, John continued, "Except you are not alive, this child will not die." His words were not shouted. They were spoken like a verdict. As night fell, his voice grew hoarser, but he did not stop. Scriptures poured out of him. Pleas, declarations, questions, silence, tears. Still, he continued. Day turned into night. Night turned into another day. And still, nothing happened. Amanda's body remained still, cold, unresponsive. Outside the room, people began to whisper that he had lost his mind. Inside, a father refused to accept the finality of death. By the end of the second day, he was barely able to stand, his body weak from dehydration and exhaustion. Yet he remained on his knees, eyes bloodshot, lips cracked, voice reduced to a rasp. "Lord, I will not leave this room without my child." But silence answered him. Yet he did not stop, because somewhere deep inside, beyond grief, beyond fear, beyond reason, he believed heaven was still listening, and he was prepared to stay there until it responded. By the morning of the third day, Pastor John no longer felt like himself. His lips were dry and cracked. His throat burned from non-stop praying. His knees had gone numb from hours on the hard floor. His eyes were swollen, red, and painfully heavy. Yet, sleep would not come. He had crossed into that strange place where exhaustion becomes something deeper, where the body begins to shut down, but the mind refuses to surrender. Amanda lay exactly where he had placed her, still, silent, unchanged. If not for the memories flooding his mind, her laughter, her voice calling Dad, the way she tilted her head when she listened, it would have been easy to believe she had never been alive at all. John pushed that thought away violently. "No," he whispered. "You lived! You lived!" He dragged himself closer to the bed and rested his head beside her arm. "Father, I don't know what else to say." For the first time since locking himself in, his voice broke completely. "I have prayed, I have cried, I have declared your word, I have reminded you of your promises. I don't even have strength left to argue." His shoulders began to shake. "But I am still here." Outside the room, the house had become a place of mourning and confusion. Relatives had gathered. Church members came in shifts, some praying fervently, others whispering anxiously. A few people quietly suggested that the body should be taken for burial before it began to decompose. John's wife refused. He said not to disturb him. Her voice was weak, hoarse from crying, but firm. "If there is even one chance, one tiny chance, I will wait." Some people shook their heads sadly. Others knelt beside her and prayed harder. No one knew what was happening inside that locked room. Inside, time had lost meaning. John's prayers had changed. They were no longer long speeches or passionate declarations. Sometimes he simply repeated one sentence over and over. "Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy." Other times, he sat in silence, staring at Amanda's face as if trying to memorize every detail. At one point, he reached out and gently adjusted a strand of hair away from her forehead, just as he had done countless times when she was younger. His hand lingered there. "You can't be gone," he whispered. Memories flooded him without warning. Her first day of school, the way she used to sit beside him while he prepared sermons, doodling quietly on scraps of paper. Her excitement the day she turned 18. "Dad, I'm officially an adult now." He had laughed. "You will always be my child." Now, that memory felt like a knife twisting slowly inside his chest. By afternoon, his strength was almost gone. He tried to stand but collapsed back to his knees, dizzy. Dark spot danced at the edges of his vision. His body screamed for water, for rest, for relief. He ignored it. Even if I die here, he muttered weakly, I will not leave. His voice had dropped to a whisper barely louder than breath. Except you are not alive. My child will not die of a death she knows nothing about. Silence pressed in from all sides, heavy, unyielding. For a moment, just a moment, doubt crept in. What if nothing happened? What if this was truly the end? What if he had misunderstood everything? Tears slid down his face. I don't understand, he whispered. But I trust you, Lord, he said, bowed. His body saged forward. And then, nothing. No sound, no movement. Just stillness so complete, it felt like the world itself had paused. Outside the room, evening shadows began to stretch across the house. Some relatives had started preparing quietly for the inevitable. Others continued praying, though their voices carried a note of desperation now. John's wife sat on the floor near the door, clutching a Bible to her chest, her eyes swollen and distant. She had cried until no tears remained. God, please, she whispered faintly. Inside the room, Pastor John was barely conscious. His breathing was shallow. His lips moved occasionally, though no sound came out. He was slumped beside the bed, one hand still resting on the mattress near Amanda's arm, as if afraid she might slip away if he let go. Then suddenly, Amanda's fingers twitched, so small, so slight. If anyone had been watching casually, they would have missed it completely. But John's hand was right there. His eyes snapped open. He froze. Did I imagine that? His heart began to pound weakly but rapidly. He leaned forward, staring at her hand. Nothing. Seconds passed. Then, her chest moved. A tiny shallow inhale. John stopped breathing altogether. No. Another breath. Faint, fragile, impossible. His entire body trembled. Amanda? No response. Then suddenly, she sneezed. A sharp, unmistakable sound that shattered the silence like a thunderclap. John recoiled in shock, staring at her as if reality had cracked open. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, slowly, they opened. Her eyes looked unfocused at first, as if she were waking from deep sleep. Dad! The word came out hoarse, confused, painfully weak. John could not move. Tears poured down his face uncontrollably, but no sound came out. His brain struggled to process what his eyes were saying. Amanda! She blinked slowly. Why are you crying? That did it. A sound erupted from him. Half laugh, half sob. Pure relief bursting out after days of unbearable tension. He grabbed her gently, afraid she might disappear if he touched her too hard. You're alive! You're alive! You're alive! She winced slightly. Dad, you're squeezing me. He immediately loosened his grip, apologizing through tears. I'm sorry. She looked around weakly, confused. What happened? I feel strange. He cupped her face carefully, as if handling something sacred. You're okay, that's all that matters, you're okay. Outside the room, no one understood why sudden shouting and crying erupted from inside. John's wife jumped to her feet. John! Then she heard it. His voice, loud, broken, joyful in a way she had never heard before. She's alive! For a moment, no one moved. The words didn't make sense. Then chaos exploded. People rushed towards the door, knocking, crying, calling his name. The lock clicked. The door opened. John stood there, exhausted, pale, barely able to stand, but smiling through tears. Behind him, Amanda was sitting up weakly on the bed, alive, breathing, blinking in confusion at the crowd gathering at the doorway. Her mother screamed, not in grief this time, but in overwhelming relief. and ran past John, collapsing onto the bed, clutching Amanda like she would never let go. "My child! My child! My child!" Amanda looked stunned. "Mom, why are you crying?" The room filled with sobs, prayers, gasps, people falling to their knees in shock and gratitude. Some simply stared, unable to speak. Outside, neighbors began to gather as the noise spread. News traveled faster than anyone could control. Doctors who had certified her death were called in disbelief. Church members who had already begun mourning rushed back in shock. People who had doubted now stood speechless. No one could explain it, but everyone could see it. Amanda was alive, weak, confused, exhausted, but undeniably alive. Late that night, after most people had finally left, Amanda lay resting quietly while her parents sat beside her, still afraid to blink too long in case she disappeared again. She turned her head slightly towards her father. "Dad." "Yes." "I had the strangest dream." He leaned closer. "What kind of dream?" She frowned faintly, trying to remember. "I felt peaceful, like nothing could hurt me. I wasn't scared. I wasn't in pain. Just calm." She looked at him. "And then, I heard your voice." His throat tightened. "You did?" She nodded. "It sounded far away at first, then closer, like you were calling me back." Tears slid down his face silently. "I was." She smiled faintly. "I am glad you didn't stop." Amanda recovered slowly over the following days. Her strength returned. Her appetite came back. Her laughter filled the house again, brighter than before. 3 days after Amanda came back to life, Pastor John finally slept properly. Not the restless sleep of exhaustion. Real sleep. Peaceful. Deep. For the first time in weeks, his mind was quiet. But around 2 a.m., he woke suddenly. Not from fear. From a dream so vivid it felt more real than waking life. He found himself standing in a dark place that looked like a vast hall. But there were no walls, no ceiling, only shadows stretching endlessly in every direction. In front of him stood a group of men dressed in expensive suits. He recognized one face immediately, Victor. But this Victor looked different, not confident, not polished, afraid. Around him were other men, older, younger, some with stern faces, others visibly shaken. Their voices overlapped in tense whispers. This was not supposed to happen. Who broke the covering? Something has shifted. One elderly man with cold eyes stepped forward. "You told us he would break." Victor's voice trembled. "He should have. No one withstand that level of pressure." Another man spoke harshly. "You targeted the wrong one." John realized they could not see him. He was only watching, like a witness, like someone allowed to see what had been hidden. The elderly man turned towards Victor again. "You assured us his daughter would be the final blow." Victor swallowed hard. "It has never failed before." A chill ran through John. So, it was true. Not coincidence. Not sickness. Not misery. Deliberate. Planned. Weaponized. The elderly man's voice dropped, filled with contained rage. "Do you understand what a survivor means?" "It means his God intervened." No one spoke. No one moved. Even in the dream, John could feel the tension vibrating through the air. Another man stepped back, shaking his head slowly. The protection around him is no longer ordinary. Victor's composure finally cracked. "This is not my fault. He was supposed to join us. He forced this outcome." The elderly man's eyes hardened. "You approached him without authorization." Victor froze. "You exposed the order to someone not bound to us." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. That is a violation. Fear flooded Victor's face now. Raw, undisguised fear. "I was trying to recruit him." "You were trying to elevate yourself." No one defended him. No one even looked at him. The man continued coldly. You failed to secure his loyalty and failed to eliminate the threat. Victor's lip trembled. What happens now? The question came like a death sentence. You bear the consequence. John woke up gasping. His room was dark, quiet, peaceful, but his heart pounded as if he had run for miles. He sat up slowly. That was just a dream. A deep knowing settled in his spirit. God had shown him something, not to frighten him, to confirm the truth. Across the city, in his luxurious penthouse, Victor was not sleeping either. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, drenched in sweat. His phone lay discarded nearby, screen cracked from being thrown earlier. The news of Amanda's recovery had spread everywhere. Social media, church networks, private circles. People were calling it a miracle. Victor knew better. Something had gone terribly wrong. Since the night the girl revived, nothing in his life had felt stable. He could not sleep. He could not focus. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Amanda sitting up on that bed, alive, breathing, impossible. Worse still, the sense of protection he once carried, that invisible shield of confidence, was gone. In its place was something unfamiliar, vulnerability, fear. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing like a trapped animal. This wasn't supposed to happen. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Yes? A calm voice spoke. Report to the inner council immediately. Victor's stomach dropped. I can't travel tonight. You were not given an option. The line went dead. His hands began to shake. The meeting did not go the way he expected. No shouting, no dramatic threats, just cold, controlled finality. You violated protocol. Victor tried to defend himself. I was expanding our influence. You exposed the order. I thought he would accept. You thought wrong. The leader leaned forward slightly. You have become a liability. Victor felt the air leave his lungs. What does that mean? It means your protection is withdrawn. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Without their protection, everything he had built could collapse overnight. His influence, his wealth, his reputation, his safety. Please, he whispered, give me another chance. But the men were already standing. This meeting is over. Within weeks, Victor's empire began to crumble. Invitations were mysteriously withdrawn. Financial partners pulled out. Scandals surfaced. Real ones this time. Investigations began. Members of his church started living in droves. The same isolation he had engineered for John now swallowed him whole. At night, he could not shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting. Meanwhile, Pastor John continued his ministry quietly. He never publicly accused anyone, never mentioned Victor's name, never told the dream to anyone except his wife. But those close to him noticed something new in his prayers. Authority, calm certainty, like a man who no longer feared hidden enemies. Something had changed in him. He preached differently now. Not louder, just deeper. Like a man who had walked through fire and come back carrying proof that God was still real. Their church did not suddenly become a mega ministry. They did not become rich overnight. But something far more powerful happened. People came, not because of advertising, not because of hype, but because hope lived there now. And every time Amanda walked into the room alive and smiling, she was a living reminder of one undeniable truth. Some battles are not won by strength. Some victories only come after everything else had been taken away. And sometimes, heaven answers at the very last moment. One Sunday, after service, Amanda stood beside him as usual. Dad, Yes? She smiled softly. I feel like something heavy lifted. Not just from me, from everything. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. It did. She tilted her head. What do you mean? He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sometimes, battles are not only about survival. They are about breaking things that were meant to continue. She didn't fully understand, but she trusted him. Far away, Victor sat alone in a nearly empty house, staring at nothing. For the first time since university days, he remembered who he used to be. A young man on fire for God. A leader who prayed through the night. A believer who wanted nothing but truth. Tears slid down his face. Too late. He had traded everything for power and lost even that. Pastor John closed that season of his life without bitterness because he knew something greater had happened. The day his daughter sneezed back to life, the day death lost its hold, the day hidden darkness realized it had overreached. That was the day the battle truly ended. And though the world might never know the full story, he knew heaven had spoken and no brotherhood on earth could silence it. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like and share with your friends and your families. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe so you don't miss our next video. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.